Welcome back. In this video we'll be looking at the mission Advanced Flip Tricks. This is going to be a long one with a lot of settings to go through, but honestly, despite how boring the settings are, understanding them is critical to get in session to play how you want it to. With that said, I'm going to cover all of the flip trick settings first, then we'll carry on with the mission. If you want to skip to this bit, I've added timestamps. You can change any of the following settings by going to the menu, Options, Gameplay, then Flip Trick Settings. Catch mode. Auto catch mode means no inputs are needed to stop the board rotating when doing a trick. Manual catch mode means you now require an additional input in order to stop the board from rotating when doing a flip trick. You can do this by moving either the left or right stick up or down. The timing of the input will vary depending on the trick you're doing, so you might need to experiment a little. Board control mode. Board control mode allows you to tweak the look of the trick depending on the inputs you use. Auto will result in the tricks looking the same regardless of your inputs. Manual will change the trick depending on the inputs you use. Flip speed mode. Flip speed mode changes the way session calculates the speed of a flip trick. Input speed bases the flip speed on how fast you apply the trick's inputs. Directional adjusts the flip speed based on the direction you apply the trick's inputs. So, if you do a kickflip but apply the inputs a little higher than normal, the board would spin faster. And if you apply the inputs a little lower than normal, it will cause the board to spin slower. Flip continuous mode. Flip continuous mode only affects your controls if you're playing with a catch mode set to auto. Whilst enabled, you're able to hold a flip trick's input in place and it will continue to rotate until you release it. Sync flips and scoops. Sync flips and scoops applies when you're doing a trick with a flip and a scoop, like a tray flip or an inward heel flip. Whilst enabled, the board's flip and scoop will be synchronized, resulting in both components of the trick ending at the same time. Whilst disabled, you have further control over the look of the trick, as both the flip and scoop speed will be independent of each other. Scoop input mode. This affects the distance you need to move your inputs to do a 180 or 360 shove it. Normal requires you to slide the stick a quarter or half of a rotation in order to do a 180 or 360 shove it. Small requires you to slide the stick 1/8 or a quarter of a rotation to do a 180 or 360 shove it. Scoop speed mode. Scoop speed mode allows you to control the speed of a scooped trick. Input speed calculates the speed of the board's scoop based on how fast you applied the input. Scoop continuous mode. Scoop continuous mode only affects your controls if you're playing with a catch mode set to auto. Whilst enabled, you're able to hold a scoop trick's input in place and it will continue to rotate until you release the input. Pop height mode. Pop height mode can alter the height of your pop tricks depending on your stance. Global pop height means you'll pop a trick at the same height regardless of your stance, whereas unique pop height will vary the height of this trick depending on your stance. For example, a switch ollie would naturally be a little lower than a regular ollie. Late tricks. Late tricks can only be performed once you're in the air. I'll be covering late tricks in a video a little later in the series. Quick shove-its. Quick shove-its are normal shove-its, i.e. not a pop shove-it. Depending on how this is set, you can shove it all of the time, only when grinding, or not at all. This needs to be set to all of the time to follow along with this video. Now, I don't expect you to remember all of these straight away, so I will mention some of them again at a later date. Just know, changing some of these settings can really dramatically change the feel. Enough about settings, let's learn some tricks. First up, let's learn how to rotate when doing a trick. For this, I'll be using an ollie, but no, it's the same regardless of the trick. To perform a rotation, we need to use the left and right triggers. Depending on your stance, these will do different things. If you're skating in the regular stance, the left trigger will rotate you front side and the right trigger will rotate you backside. If you're skating in the goofy stance, the left trigger will rotate you backside and the right trigger will rotate you front side. The way session responds to a rotation's inputs will vary depending on your body rotation mode. Personally, I prefer using the manual mode, but if you haven't already, I'd recommend experimenting with the different body rotation modes to see which feels best to you. So, let's do these 3 frontside rotations. As I approach the top step, I ready myself to ollie. Then, as I start to move my front foot's input, I squeeze the left trigger. Remember, if you're skating in the goofy stance, you'll need to use the right trigger. Now, let's do these 3 backside rotations. I'll do everything the same, but I'll use the opposite trigger. Remember, after rotating 180 degrees, you'll land in a switch stance. If you're playing with the left foot right foot input mode, you'll need to adjust your inputs to the opposite stance to perform tricks accordingly. I'll cover this in more detail in the 14th mission skate shop meetup. Also, if you're doing these tricks in a switch stance, you need to rotate in the opposite direction to what it asks. And don't forget, a switch stance is when you stood on the board in the opposite stance to how you'd naturally stand on it. Before we move on and learn pop shove it, I want to explain how to shove it, aka a quick shove it. This is really important to learn as it makes a difference between some of the historical challenges triggering or not. Just know, when I say a shove it, I mean a quick shove it. If I mean a pop shove it, I'll always call it a pop shove it. If you're skating in the regular stance and using either input mode, you'd pull the right stick straight down, then, whilst holding it down, you need to slide it round and up to the left to do a backside shove it. Sliding it round and up to the right will do a frontside shove it. If you're skating in the goofy stance and using the front foot back foot input mode, you'd pull the right stick straight down, then you'd slide it round and up to the left to do a frontside shove it, and sliding it round and up to the right will do a backside shove it. If you're skating in the goofy stance and using the left foot right foot input mode, you'd pull the left stick straight down and then slide it round and up to the left to do a frontside shove it, and round and up to the right to do a backside shove it. Don't forget, if you're playing with manual catch enabled, you'll need to add the input to stop the board from rotating. To do a pop shove it, all we need to do is push the front foot's input straight up after we've finished moving the rear foot's input. Everything else remains the same. So, as I'm rolling up to the steps, I crouch like I'm going to ollie. Then, I slide the rear foot's input round and up to the left before pushing the front foot's input up. Now, all I need to do is catch the board after a 180 rotation. As the board comes to the end of its rotation, I'll push the rear foot's input up. Now, to do a frontside pop shove it, I'll do everything the same apart from the direction I move the rear foot's input. Session can reject shove-its or pop shove-its if you over-rotate them with the input, even if you catch it after only a 180 rotation. Try and be as precise as possible with your inputs you're using to avoid unnecessary issues. Next, we need to talk about kick and heel flips. To do a kick flip or heel flip, you'd start by pulling your rear foot's input straight down like you're going to ollie. Then, you'd pull the front foot's input off to the side. If you're skating in the regular stance and using either input mode, you'd pull the left stick to the left to kick flip and to the right to heel flip. If you're skating in the goofy stance and using the front foot back foot input mode, you'd pull the left stick to the right to kick flip and to the left to heel flip. If you're skating in the goofy stance and using the left foot right foot input mode, you'd pull the right stick to the right to kick flip and to the left to heel flip. So, now we can pop shove it and kick and heel flip, we can talk about the variants. These are when you combine either a frontside or backside shove it with a kick flip or heel flip. So, if you do a frontside 180 shove its input with the rear foot and a kick flip with the front foot, you can do a varial kick flip. If you do a backside 180 shove its motion with the rear foot's input and a heel flip with the front foot's input, you can do a varial heel flip. If you do a backside 180 shove its motion with the rear foot's input and a kick flip with the front foot's input, you can do a hard flip. And finally, if you do a frontside 180 shove its motion with the rear foot's input and a heel flip with the front foot's input, you can do an inward heel flip. Now, we can pick 2 of these to do down the stairs. I think I'm going to use a hard flip and a varial heel flip, but feel free to do whichever 2 of the 4 variants you'd like. Finally, to finish off, we need to do a couple of 360 rotations. When it comes to doing a 360, we can increase the speed we rotate by moving the front or rear foot's input to aid in the rotation. Generally speaking, you'd pull the left stick left or the right stick right to aid a frontside rotation, or you'd move the left stick right and the right stick left to aid a backside rotation. Unless you're skating in the goofy stance and using the front foot back foot input mode, at which point you'd swap the inputs around. So, you'd pull the left stick to the right or the right stick to the left when rotating frontside, and you'd pull the left stick to left and the right stick right when rotating backside. With that, we've made a massive dent in the different flip tricks to learn. In the next video, we'll take a closer look at the skate shop and where we can buy new items. But until then, take it easy.